All right, so today we're looking at how ports can become more eco-friendly. And we're going to be diving deep into this report
Okay.
called the Decarbonization of Ports. And this idea of like
Yeah.
these massive hubs of global trade going green, it just seems like a
Yeah.
monumental task.
Right.
But this report actually lays out a pretty optimistic plan.
It does. It's interesting. I think,
Mhm.
we often focus on reducing emissions from like cars and planes,
Yeah.
but ports are often overlooked.
Oh, that's true.
And they're major
Ooh.
contributors to greenhouse gases.
I actually never really considered that.
Yeah.
What are some of the biggest
Well,
sources?
it's everything
Yeah.
ships idling in port trucks and cranes running on diesel.
Uh-huh.
The sheer amount of energy needed to keep everything moving
Yeah.
24/7. This report tackles all of that.
Constant operation.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's break this down a little bit.
Okay.
The first big idea that I see here is a complete energy overhaul.
Mhm.
So shifting away from fossil fuels and towards renewables,
Yeah.
what are some of the key changes that we might see in that transition?
Well, imagine entire ports running on like
Wow.
solar and wind power.
Wow.
We're already seeing this in some places
Yeah.
where rooftops,
Mm-hmm.
parking lots, and even water areas are being utilized for solar panels.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And you add in
Yeah.
strategically placed wind turbines,
Okay.
and you've got a solid foundation for clean energy.
So you've got like the actual
Yeah.
port powered by renewables.
Right.
But what about like when the sun isn't shining or the wind isn't blowing?
Well, that's where
or-
green hydrogen
Yeah.
comes in
Okay.
and battery storage.
Right.
Green hydrogen, which is produced using renewable energy,
Mm-hmm.
acts like stored sunshine that can be used as fuel.
Hmm.
Coupled with large-scale battery systems,
Okay.
ports could have a constant supply of clean energy.
So it's almost like a giant
Power bank.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got the port itself,
Mm-hmm.
powered by renewables.
Right.
Now, what about all the equipment that keeps things moving within the port?
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking about those giant cranes,
Yeah.
the trucks, the forklifts.
Yeah.
Those things are hardly known for being eco-friendly.
No, you're right.
So what can be done there?
But we're seeing a big push towards electrifying those machines.
Okay.
We already have the technology
Yeah.
to replace diesel-powered equipment with electric versions.
Okay.
This would not only drastically reduce emissions,
Right.
but it would also improve air quality
Yeah.
for workers and nearby communities.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, a significant benefit
Yeah.
that often gets overlooked.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've addressed clean energy for the port itself,
Mm-hmm.
the potential for electrifying a lot of the equipment.
Right.
But now what about when a ship is at the dock?
Okay.
Can they even utilize those clean energy sources? Absolutely, that's where shore power comes in.
Okay.
Or cold ironing.
Right.
Ships can actually plug into the electrical grid while docked,
Oh, wow.
just like charging a giant phone.
That's fascinating.
This eliminates the need for them to run their engines while in port,
Right.
drastically reducing noise and air pollution.
That makes a lot of sense. But how realistic is it to expect all ships to be compatible with that?
It will certainly take time
Right.
to retrofit every vessel.
Right.
In the meantime, hybrid systems,
Okay.
which utilize electric power for some operations,
Okay.
while retaining diesel engines for longer journeys, could bridge the gap.
All right. So we've talked about clean energy for the port,
Mm-hmm.
talked about electrifying a lot of the equipment.
Yeah.
But what about the ships once they leave the port?
Okay.
What kind of fuels
Mm.
could power those massive vessels in a greener way?
Well, this is where ports can act as catalysts for change
Okay.
across the
Mhm.
entire shipping industry. By supporting the transition to cleaner ship fuels,
Okay.
they can incentivize the adoption of these new technologies.
So what are we looking at here?
Hmm.
What are some of the leading contenders in that arena?
Well, in the near term, biofuels
Oh,
and e-fuels are promising options.
all right.
These can be utilized in existing engines,
Uh-huh.
allowing for more immediate emissions reductions.
Okay.
But what's really exciting are the fuels on the horizon,
Okay. Like what?
like ammonia and methanol.
Wow.
They have the potential to power ships with zero emissions.
Ammonia.
Yeah.
I gotta say, I'm a little apprehensive about
Yeah.
using something that can be quite dangerous
Yeah.
as a fuel source.
I understand your concern,
Yeah.
but remember,
Yeah.
the technology for safely handling and using ammonia is being developed,
Okay.
and the potential benefits are huge.
All right.
It's incredibly energy dense,
Yeah.
allowing for longer voyages,
Okay.
and it can be produced using renewable energy sources.
I hadn't considered those factors. So how do we actually get shipping companies to embrace these new fuels? What's the incentive?
Well, ports can play a key role here by offering financial benefits.
Okay.
Imagine lower fees for ships that utilize cleaner fuels and technologies.
Interesting.
This would encourage early adoption and accelerate the industry's shift towards sustainability.
So it's a win-win for both the ports and the shipping
Gently,
hardware.
it creates a positive feedback loop
Yeah.
where everyone benefits from embracing cleaner practices.
All right. So we've covered transitioning to renewable energy, electrifying equipment, exploring cleaner ship fuels. But there's one more piece of this puzzle I'm curious about.
Okay.
Digitalization. What role does technology play in making ports more sustainable? That seems like a whole other world.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating one, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me about that.
Digitalization can optimize every aspect of a port's operation. Really. Using AI and data analysis, we can increase efficiency, reduce waste, make better use of resources, which ultimately translates to fewer emissions.
So it's like bringing the smarts of Silicon Valley to these massive industrial hubs.
Yeah, you could say that. How does that actually work?
Yeah.
Well, think of it as a super efficient brain managing the entire port. One example is something called a digital twin.
Okay.
It's a virtual replica of the entire port, a dynamic 3D model that uses real-time data. This allows operators to test new technologies and scenarios, anticipate problems, and optimize everything from ship movements to energy consumption.
So it's like having a simulator for the whole port.
Yeah.
That's wild. What else falls under this digitalization umbrella?
Another key element is the concept of smart grids.
Okay.
Energy networks that can adjust to changes in supply and demand in real time.
Right.
This means renewable energy sources, which can be intermittent, can be integrated seamlessly and used as effectively as possible.
So instead of just reacting to changes,
Right.
these systems can anticipate and adjust on the fly.
Exactly. It's about proactive management, which is essential for maximizing efficiency and minimizing waste. But all this talk of high-tech solutions makes me wonder about the people who actually work in these ports.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, how do they fit into this vision of a digitally driven, decarbonized future?
How do we make sure that these workers benefit from these changes and aren't left behind?
That's a critical consideration. We need to make sure that the workforce is equipped with the skills to thrive in this new environment. As ports adopt new technologies, workers will need training and support to operate and maintain these systems.
So it sounds like this transition actually presents an opportunity to create a more skilled and specialized workforce.
It is. It's a chance to invest in people, equip them with cutting-edge skills, and create a workforce that's ready for the future of the maritime industry.
Okay, so we've got the port itself powered by clean energy equipment, going electric ships, transitioning to cleaner fuels. It's the digitally optimized management system.
Right.
But something we haven't touched on yet is the role of individuals and consumers.
Yeah.
Can we really make a difference in this massive global industry through our individual actions?
It's easy to feel powerless when you think about the scale of the challenge.
Yeah.
But consumer demand is a driving force for change. When we choose to buy from companies that are committed to sustainability, we send a powerful message to the market.
So we have more power than we realize.
You do. Every time you make a purchase, you're casting a vote for the kind of world you want to live in.
Yeah.
If enough people start demanding products that are transported sustainably, companies will have no choice but to adapt.
So it's about being conscious consumers and making informed choices about the products we buy, the companies we support. Are there other actions individuals can take beyond just their purchasing decisions?
Absolutely. Staying informed is key. Read articles, listen to podcasts, learn about the issues, talk to your friends and family. Knowledge is power, and the more people who are aware of the challenges and possibilities, the more likely we are to see real change.
So starting those conversations,
Yeah.
spreading awareness, maybe even putting a little pressure on our elected officials to support policies that promote sustainable shipping.
Precisely. And it's not just about talking. It's also about action. Support organizations that are working to make shipping more sustainable. Volunteer your time or donate to causes that align with your values. Every little bit helps.
This is all starting to paint a much more optimistic picture of what a sustainable future for shipping could look like.
Yeah.
But this is a global industry. So how do we ensure that these efforts to decarbonize ports are happening on an international scale?
You're right. This can't be a piecemeal effort. We need a coordinated approach that involves ports, shipping companies, and governments around the world working together. The good news is that there are already organizations like the International Maritime Organization, IMO,
Okay.
that are working to establish global standards and facilitate cooperation between countries.
So they're like the United Nations of shipping.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
They're helping to create a level playing field and ensure that everyone is working towards the same goals.
So they're not just setting the rules, they're also like providing support.
Exactly. They provide technical assistance to developing countries.
Okay.
They promote best practices,
Uh-huh.
and they help to mobilize funding for sustainable shipping projects.
So they have a really crucial role to play.
They do. But what about individual countries?
Yeah. Do some countries have more responsibility than others to lead the way on decarbonizing shipping?
It's a complex question, and there's no easy answer. Some countries have larger shipping industries and therefore contribute more to emissions, while others have more resources and technological capabilities to invest in clean technologies. But ultimately, climate change is a global problem that requires a global solution. Every country has a responsibility to do its part, and we need to find solutions that are both effective and equitable.
So while some countries may be able to move faster than others, it's ultimately a collective effort
It is.
that requires cooperation and a shared commitment
Right.
to sustainability.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the economic side of things.
Okay.
Are there any costs or trade-offs associated with this transition to sustainable shipping?
It's important to acknowledge that there will be costs involved. Upgrading infrastructure, adopting new technologies, and training workers all require investment. And there may be some short-term economic disruptions as the industry adapts to these changes, but I think it's crucial to view those costs in light of the long-term benefits.
So it's an investment worth making, even if it requires some upfront costs.
It is. And it's not just about mitigating the negative impacts of climate change. Decarbonizing shipping also presents a huge economic opportunity. Think about it. Investing in clean technologies creates jobs, stimulates innovation, and makes ports more competitive and attractive to businesses.
So it's not just about saving the planet.
Right.
It's also about smart business decisions.
It is. Sustainability and profitability are no longer mutually exclusive. In fact, they're becoming increasingly intertwined.
That's encouraging to hear.
Well,
But while we're focused on the positive, are there any potential downsides or unintended consequences that we need to be aware of? Could this transition to sustainable shipping create any new problems while trying to solve old ones?
it's always important to consider all sides of the issue. One potential concern is that the increased demand for certain raw materials like lithium for batteries or rare earth metals for wind turbines could lead to new environmental and social challenges.
So we need to be mindful of that entire supply chain.
We do.
And ensure that the materials we're using for these clean technologies are sourced ethically and sustainably.
Absolutely. We don't want to just shift the environmental burden from one place to another. We need a truly holistic approach to sustainability.
Right, because otherwise we're just trading one set of problems for another.
Exactly.
Are there other potential challenges we need to consider?
Another important factor to consider is the impact on workers. The increased automation of port operations, while beneficial for efficiency, could lead to job displacement for some. We need to ensure that we're providing training and support to help workers adapt to these changes and acquire new skills.
So it's about making sure that this shift towards sustainability doesn't come at the expense of workers' livelihoods.
Right.
It needs to be a just and equitable transition.
It does. It's about creating a future where both people and the planet can thrive.
This has been such an insightful conversation. We've explored so many different facets of decarbonizing ports,
We have.
from the technology and logistics to the economic and social implications. It's clear that this is a complex issue with no easy solutions.
It is complex, but it's also incredibly hopeful. There's so much innovation happening in this space, and so many dedicated people are working towards a common goal.
It's inspiring to see how much momentum is building around this issue.
It really is. And that's what I hope our listener takes away from this deep dive, a sense of hope and possibility. Decarbonizing ports is a monumental task, but it's achievable, and the benefits are enormous both for the planet and for people.
I completely agree. But before we wrap things up, I want to push a little further. What would a truly sustainable port city look like? If we fast forward 50 years, what would be the hallmarks of a port city that has successfully embraced sustainability?
Okay, so imagine a city where the port itself is a model of efficiency and cleanliness. Ships glide silently into harbors powered by renewable energy. Cargo is moved swiftly and quietly with electric cranes and trucks. The air is fresh, free from the noise and pollution of traditional port operations.
It sounds idyllic, but it's more than just the port itself, right?
It is. It's about a city where the port is fully integrated into the urban fabric. There's seamless public transportation connecting the port to the city center. Green spaces and parks are woven throughout the port area, providing recreational opportunities for residents and workers.
So it's not just about minimizing the negative impacts of the port.
Right.
It's about creating a space where the port actually enhances the quality of life
Exactly.
in the city.
Yeah, imagine a port city that's a hub for innovation in sustainable technologies, attracting businesses and talent from around the world.
That's a compelling vision. But what about the ships themselves?
Okay.
We've focused a lot on greening the ports, but what would a truly sustainable ship look like?
Imagine a ship that's a marvel of engineering and design, powered by clean energy sources like renewable electricity or hydrogen fuel cells. Its hull is designed to maximize fuel efficiency. Its engines are whisper quiet, emitting nothing but water vapor or even capturing their carbon emissions. And the onboard systems are optimized to minimize waste and conserve resources.
So it's about taking all the principles we've discussed about sustainable ports and applying them to the ships themselves.
Exactly.
Seeing ships not just as vessels for transporting goods, but as self-contained ecosystems designed for minimal environmental impact.
Exactly. It's about shifting from a mindset of simply minimizing harm to one of creating a positive impact. For example, imagine a ship where food waste is composted to fertilize onboard gardens, providing fresh produce for the crew. Or where gray water is treated and reused for non-potable purposes.
That sounds incredibly innovative and futuristic.
It is.
It's amazing to think about the possibilities. It feels like we're on the verge of a major transformation
We are
in
in
the maritime industry, a shift toward a truly sustainable future.
It's an exciting time to be a part of this industry. And while there's still a lot of work to be done, the momentum is building.
I agree. But as we've discussed, change doesn't happen overnight.
No, it doesn't.
It takes time, effort, and a whole lot of collaboration. So what's the first step? Where do we even begin to tackle such a massive undertaking?
It can feel overwhelming, right? Like, where do we even begin?
Yeah, exactly.
But there are concrete steps we can take
Okay.
to accelerate this transition towards sustainable shipping.
All right, so what are we looking at here?
One of the most effective strategies is the development of what are called green shipping corridors.
Okay, I've heard that term before.
Yeah.
But what exactly does that entail?
So imagine dedicated shipping routes
Okay.
designed specifically for low or zero emission vessels. It's like creating a fast lane
Right.
for sustainable ships,
Okay.
prioritizing those using the cleanest technologies and fuels.
So you're focusing resources and infrastructure along these specific routes to make it easier,
Exactly.
more cost-effective for companies to embrace these greener practices.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And by concentrating those efforts,
Okay.
we can achieve significant emissions reductions in a shorter time frame.
That makes sense. But these corridors don't just appear overnight.
They don't. So who's responsible for putting them into action?
It requires collaboration between multiple stakeholders,
Okay.
ports, shipping companies, and governments.
Okay, so kind of everyone.
Yeah, everyone working together.
Right.
Ports at both ends of the corridor need to invest in the necessary infrastructure,
Okay.
like shore power connections
Uh-huh.
and facilities for alternative fuels.
Okay.
Shipping companies need to commit to using vessels
Right.
that meet the corridor's emission standards.
Makes sense.
And governments need to provide supportive policies and financial incentives to make it all happen.
So it goes back to that idea of collaboration being key.
It does. No one entity can do this alone. It requires a whole network of partners working together towards a shared goal.
And I imagine the benefits extend beyond just emissions reductions.
They do. These green corridors can stimulate innovation, create jobs, and improve air quality in port cities, making them more attractive places to live and work.
That's fantastic. So what about ports that aren't located along these designated corridors?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are they just left behind in this transition?
Not at all.
Yeah.
While green corridors are a great way to accelerate change along those specific routes, the principles of sustainability should be adopted by all ports,
Right.
regardless of location.
Okay.
Even those not part of a designated corridor can invest in renewable energy, electrify their equipment, and implement circular economy practices.
So it's really about creating a culture of sustainability across the entire industry,
It is.
not just in select locations.
Exactly. Every port, no matter how big or small, has a role to play in creating a more sustainable future for shipping.
This has been a really enlightening conversation.
It has
We've
been.
gone from like wondering, is sustainable shipping even possible?
Right.
To seeing this realistic roadmap for how to actually get it done.
Yeah.
And it's exciting to see so much innovation momentum
It is.
building around this issue.
It's inspiring to see all the people who are dedicated to making this happen.
I agree. So to wrap things up for our listener,
Okay.
what's the one key takeaway you want them to walk away with today?
I want them to understand that sustainable shipping isn't just some far-off dream. It's a real possibility. We have the technology, the knowledge, and the resources to make it happen.
So it's about taking action.
Yeah,
Uh.
it is. It starts with recognizing the power of our individual choices and then amplifying that through collective action.
That's a great point. And it's exciting to think about
It is.
all the possibilities that are out there
Yeah.
as we move towards this greener future.
It really is a future worth striving for.
Absolutely. Well, this has been another fantastic deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
And for our listeners, that's your challenge.
Hmm.
What role will you play in pushing this industry towards a more sustainable future? Until next time, keep diving deep.